Hi everyone. Welcome back to the Influencer Diplomacy Online Symposium, and I'm Wuxuan Zhang, one of the organizers of this event. And just a quick reminder that you can scan the QR code on the slides to get program details, a full schedule, and more information. And let me bring you to the panel two, Influencer and Everyday Diplomacy. This is the 5 papers explored how influencers act as an everyday diplomat across a different cultural and digital context. And let me introduce you our first presenter in this panel, Zhang, who is a PhD candidate in media and communication at RMIT University, Australia. And her research focuses on the digital public diplomacy, influencer journalist, and China image construction on the global social media platforms. And now it's my pleasure to hand it over to Jiang.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Jiang, and I'm currently a PhD candidate at the RMIT University. Today, I'll be sharing a chapter from my PhD thesis titled Performing China Online, Wanghong Journalist, Persona Politics, and China Global Images. So this is where my PhD journey started. During the COVID-19, I came across this video by Xu Zeyu, a journalist from a Xinhua news agency. So at the height of the crisis, he was filming daily vlogs in Wuhan. What struck me immediately was this video looks nothing like the traditional state media output. It was raw, personal, filmed on a handheld camera, and distributed on the YouTube. So here we can see a state media journalist who acted as an independent vlogger. And the video is intimate and personal, but the function is definitely diplomatic. So this blending of journalist and the influencer to serve the Chinese public diplomacy is precisely the phenomenon that my research investigate. But the rise of the influencer style of journalist is not accidental. In June 2021, the Chinese Communist Party's publicity department launched a project called the Multilingual Internet Celebrity Studio. And you can see on the quote on the slides calling for shaping a credible, lovable, and respectable image of China. And through this multilingual internet celebrity studio, which is a training program that help a wide range of the people, including the state affiliate journalists, to operate as the influencers on overseas platforms. So here we can see that the China is no longer rely solely on the institutional media outlets to project its online image. Instead, it is delegating part of that work to the individual and let them to build the personal brand and cultivate this intimacy with the global audiences. Before going further, let me clarify 2 key concepts that frame my research. The first one is a broader category of the influencer journalist. The scholar like the Herkang has introduced the concept of the newsfluencer. This captures a global trend that where the journalism and influencer culture are converging right now. And the second concept, this is the one central to my research, is the Wanghong. Wanghong is actually derived from 网络红人, literally translate to the red on the internet, with the color red signifying the popularity. And she actually proposed the concept of Wanghong thinking to describe the CPC's mindset to incorporate the popular Wanghong culture to achieve the social, political, and economic objectives. And as you can see from the slides on the right, these journalists are not only not producing the overtly propagandist content. Instead, they touch upon the international context issue in a very much softer way. For example, like travel vlog in Tibet, a visit to a mosque in Xinjiang, and also interview with a lawyer explaining the Hong Kong legal systems. So you can definitely see that diplomatic intentions, but the format is much like the softer and the lifestyle content. Before presenting my findings, I need to establish some benchmark I will compare against. So drawing on the existing literature and official discourse, I identify 4 recurring elements of the Chinese official promoted national image, such as the peacefully rising responsible major power, a cooperated partner in global governance, especially for the global south. And third would be the civilizational power with rich cultural heritage and soft appeal. And final is the legitimate political and development model. So my research aim is to examine the persona Wanghong journalists construct in their official online public diplomacy practices and to compare these personas with China's officially promoted national image. So I ask 2 questions. First is, what type of persona do Wanghong journalists construct in their everyday online performance? And second is, to what extent do these persona align with or depart from Chinese officially promoted national image? I conducted an online ethnography using the non-participant of the observation over the 9 months. And my research subjects are 10 Wanghong journalists. All of them are state affiliate journalists. And I collected 3 types of the material, such as the post, audio, video, comments under the post, and as well as my observational and reflective field notes. Here comes to my preliminary findings. So from me analysis, there are 3 distinctive persona emerged. The first one is the pro-China intellectual. They usually position themselves as a very rational analyst above the ideology, and they usually adopt a very measured and fact-driven tone. And they use what I called the capital transfer strategy, citing the Western think tanks and theorists, such as the Fukuyama, to create the West on its own term. The second one is the defender of China, position themselves as the truth teller, exposing the Western bias, and they usually use a very confrontational and sarcastic tone, and rely on what I called the moral inversion, which refers to reframing the Western criticism as hypocrisy and invoking the historical grievance to legitimize China's current stances. The last one is the cosmopolitan storyteller. They position themselves as a very friendly global travelers using a very warm and uplifting tone, and they rely on the personal storytelling to foreground the life experiences and the human state of human connections across the borders. Here, I compare each persona with the element of China's officially promoted image, the most invested in projecting. For example, the first one is the cosmopolitan storyteller. They mostly invested in the cultural appeal. And here, their warm and open-minded persona actually deliver that image. So pretty much the persona and image align in this case. And as for the defender of China, they invest mostly in the defending of a peacefully rising responsible major power, but here we can see a gap. This nationalist and confrontational persona actively contradict with the peaceful image they are trying to defend. For example, you cannot attack or mock a foreign official, but project the peacefulness at the same time. So actually, this persona undermines the very image it claimed to project. And finally, for the pro-China intellectual, it invests defending as the legitimate political and development model of China's national image. And this rational data-driven persona seem to fit, but beneath this natural form lies a very clear ideological alignment. Once the audiences note that the selective use of the Western sources to advance the pro-China stances, this credibility will collapse. So this leads to my central argument. So the the Wanghong journalist reveal a gap between the individual persona performance and the China's official national image. And this is a gap actually embedded in the logic of the personalized public diplomacy itself. So I do argue that this gap is structural because the very quality that the Wanghong journalists attractive as the influencers, such as the distinctive voices and as well as the power social intimacies, are the qualities that cannot be scripted from above without destroying their appeal. So this invites us to rethinking the broader of the personal politics, which rests on what I called an avoidable trade-off, which means that the Chinese state government want to gain authenticity and intimacy by delegating this image making to individual, but it at the same time lose the message discipline that the original institutional diplomacy once secured. And thank you so much for your attention, and thank you again for having me. And I'm looking forward to future discussion. Thank you.
There. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my discussion about the digital humor to cultural diplomacy and diasporic digital creators as informal cultural ambassadors. So my topic for today is about the case of Bonniethestar and the Philippine Mama Aru Aru trend. So currently I'm based in Japan as a PhD student in Kobe University. So we have been discussing about the change in top-down diplomacy. And in my research, it is connected to that. And my research is also connected to the prior discussion on the COVID-19 pandemic. So my discussion is about the rising visibility of mixed Japanese Filipino children in the influencer scene in social media such as TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, YouTube. And with this, they enter with their limited and often exoticized mainstream media representation. And having digital media for them, or SNS, allows them to shape their own identities and their self-representations online. So we have seen as I have seen in my research, influencers now shape cross-cultural perceptions bordering towards cultural diplomacy. And of course, the previous discussions on the state-led top-down diplomacy practices, the changes in that. So for my research questions, I aim to ask how diaspora creators mediate mixed migrant family identities online in this digital media space, and how do diaspora creators and influencers contribute to the contemporary forms of public diplomacy through, of course, digital cultural presentation. So I am using part of this, this is part of my dissertation, or my broad dissertation on digital ethnography of the Philippine Mama Aru Aru trend. I'm doing a content analysis on all of the creators online who do or join the Philippine Mama Aru Aru trend, and do qualitative case studies individually in some of the participants. So again, we discussed the differences or the changes from state to the public, dissemination of information, and state-led practice of diplomacy. And in my paper, it has changed quite from creator to creating their publics and then being recognized by the institutions or the diplomatic institutions. So before, in the traditional diplomacy has involved the states engaging external audiences to advance their own interests, improve reputation, foster understanding. And of course, this has been changing recently. For example, before there was the Japan Foundation events trying to promoting Japanese culture to the Philippines, and I, as well as a member of the MEC Scholarship, University to University initiatives. So through the MEC Scholarship as well, Filipino students like myself have been invited to pursue graduate studies in Japan. So these were the kinds of activities that the state-led promotion of diplomacy has been doing. And now it has been changing. So instead of external audiences being just spectators, they have now been becoming participants of the diplomacy. So my topic is based on the trend of Philippine Mama Aru Aru. It's an online trend that gained traction starting from 2020 during the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. So essentially, it's about parodies of Filipino mothers being posted online as posted by their children. So aru-aru means common or typical things that many people relate to. So it's often combined with a noun and usually about classic cliche Philippine things, cliche Philippine mother things, or typical Filipino mom things. So this has gained traction during the pandemic, and one of the case studies that I've been studying, Bonniethestar, she started her SNS during the COVID-19 pandemic due to layoffs or massive layoffs in the companies during COVID-19. So she is mainly known for her Philippine Mama Aru Aru comedic videos detailing her life as a Filipina Japanese child or offspring. And she's also famous for her 3 language skits featuring Filipino, English, and Japanese. And she's currently an English coach online. So, as Bonnie has been gaining traction in her page, she has been seen promoting taho, or a Filipino sweet snack made of fresh warm silken tofu, or arnibal and chewy sago pearls similar to tapioca pearls. This is a brand collaboration with her friends from a business called Sansan Okinawa. And with this and with her practices, what is her intersect with diplomacy? So throughout her online activities in my ethnography, she has started creating her own communities first from the pandemic, and then creating her communities, building her network, using her comedy with her mother's experiences with her mothers. And then she has come to share more about her culture online, and thus has gained some traction and some um, interest from the embassy or Philippine embassy in Japan. So then she has become an informal cultural ambassador and has been invited in various Philippine embassy events in Tokyo. So she is now part of the group aiming to promote the Philippine tourism and the Department of Tourism with the Love the Philippines campaign. She's also invited in the Osaka Expo 2025 as an event host. And through the Japanese embassy, and because of her connections with the business of the Taho snack, Philippine snack, she was awarded as the Taho ambassador through the Love the Philippines campaign of the Department of Tourism. And now she's frequently seen attending diplomatic events as well. So through the Japanese embassy, she also hosts activities and events about the Philippines related to the Love the Philippines campaign. So, with this, her experiences show how digital influencers like Bonniethestar, who start from humor, comedic videos, have become connected to public diplomacy. And as we have discussed a while ago, instead of state to the audience, public diplomacy also now emerges from creators to creation of their communities, and then eventually being recognized by institutions. Of course, in my studies, it allows me to dissect which portrayals of Filipino-ness, mixed Filipino-Japanese-ness, become institutionally valuable for Filipino embassies in Japan, which mixed identities are amplified, and how creators reshape identities, and who now represents nations online. So Bonnie is a valuable case showing how humor from experiences in mixed Japanese-Filipino families can contribute to the diplomatic sphere using your own voices, and of course, an important subject of inquiry about the recent logics of state representation in their engagement with influences. So that's all, and thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Hello, pleasantries to everyone. I hope everyone is having a good time throughout this online symposium. And today, I will be presenting our group research study. This is a title, it's quite long, and perhaps a great introduction to my study, besides from the slides, would be the past studies have looked at how influencers themselves became key actors, but in our study, we tried a different approach since there are influencers or content creators who go to the Philippines that makes out of content of Filipinos, but we further delve into not into the influencer or the videos themselves, but on the conversation down to the video, specifically in the YouTube platform. So that's why there's a mentioning of the foreigners, but also the commenters. So perhaps in relation to influencer diplomacy, perhaps a different or there's a different lens of seeing the influencers from the perspectives of the commenters or their reception, perhaps. So let's dive into this topic. So it's not new for cultural communication to have food materials or food media. And it's not exclusive to one country. I'm sure Chinese cuisine has their screen time when it comes to being featured in food videos, Italian cuisine, French cuisine, and the like. But I guess this also comes into my positionality as someone who is a Filipino, and as I scroll through my own social media, I am not it's inevitable for me to encounter these types of content where a foreigner content creator would go here in the Philippines and experience Philippine cuisine for themselves. And there are these types of content are spread out in different platforms like Facebook, even TikTok, but there's a reason why we chose YouTube. And primarily it's because of how we pick up our theoretical anchors for our study. Specifically, the study of Kim et al. On their paper Our Korea, Transcultural Affinity as Negotiated Through YouTube Encounters. Um, they explored banal Orientalism and how transcultural affinity is being formed through cultural intermediaries, but inspired also of ideas of transcultural affinity dating to Ez's work on transculturality. We also, in a way, expected that in as Filipinos are one of the most active users of social media, they do not shy away from expressing their opinions. And somehow, when a foreigner comes into a different place, there's always a notion of being exoticized. But we also become inspired of Cap Ferrer and, sorry for the mispronunciation, Theodosopoulos' book Against Exoticism, where they feature how self-exoticization acts as counter-exoticization to the othering of other people. So there's some sort of meta-ness when one creates content out of someone's culture and we want to see how those being portrayed react to the influencers represent how they experienced it. So, all in all, we boil down into this question: how do Filipino commenters read foreigners' transcultural affinity and self exoticize in foreign YouTubers' videos on Philippine cuisine? So, it's good to note the actors of the foreigners, but also the commenters. So, it's not just the ones in the video, but also those engaging in the comment section. And these are our objectives. I think the most juicy or exciting part of our study is the theorizing part, which is, of course, a shared process and a process that is supervised by our research advisor. In terms of our methodology, um, it's displayed right there on the screen, but our group has quite a bit of a process when it comes to selecting the comments and also the videos. In terms of the comments, it was quite a tedious process of making sure, since it's not very evident to know if this is a Filipino or not, the commenter, but through visual markers, through seeing also their profiles and also the way how they use their language, and in relation to the video, that's how we're able to choose the comments. All in all, we also use API, YouTube API, for us to extract comments from the selected videos. 15 comments are extracted from 20 different videos, which totaled around 300 comments for analysis. Um, so yeah, and in terms of the videos, we try to be intensive when it comes to the type of video. So it's not only reactions. There are street food adventures, there are reviews or snacks in restaurants. There are also comparisons of Philippine cuisine to other cuisines, and also there are some content creators attempting to cook their own. So in terms of the videos and in terms of the comments, it went through a rigorous process. So let's go to the findings and themes. This is it, the part that is very much exciting. So in terms of the commenters' reaction or response to how the foreigners portray or feature the Philippine cuisine, these are our main themes or findings when it comes to it. There's cultural exchange, there's desire, there's sentimentality, and even mimicking or as if the foreigners are already acting like locals. And from transcultural affinity, when it comes to self-exoticization, there's a lot. I think one of the more common, or you can see here, there are two subthemes: gratification of foreign validation somehow influences one's culture to be legitimized or even recognized in a global stage. There's also a part of tourism, there's also a part of distinguishing oneself, which is part of self-exoticization. So let's first dive into the transcultural affinity, or I would like to allude to one of the former panelists' term, outsiders admiration, or why foreigners willingly visit or create content about the Philippines that is not only limited to the phenomenon of Pinoy baiting. For us, it's more of a social constructivist view, which for one, there's a cultural exchange happening in between how the foreigners feature the Philippine content and how the Filipinos express that representation. So this is one of the excerpts of the comments or the exemplar. It is English translated for everyone to understand it. But you can see it's quite long. The comment is quite long. We're shocked that there's some comments that are paragraphs, and they really go hard with, I'm Filipinos, it's like this, it's like that. So yeah, the Filipinos do not shy away from explaining, from adding context. And also, when it comes to desire, there are also comments about their it's very tasty when they see the video or how it is presented. So it's not only physical through what is being shown, but it's also emotional. And when it comes to emotionality, there are also bits of sentimentality, since there are commenters who are OFWs or overseas Filipino workers. So they relate nostalgia or even memories from the comments through watching the foreigners' vlogs or the content. And of course, there's also a mentioning of praising how, oh, you act like a Filipino now, or they also acknowledge how the foreigner extends effort to be with the local people there. And moving forward with the self-exoticization part, um, as presented here, the mutually beneficial exchange comes with how the Filipino or commenters themselves want to extend the featuring of Philippine cuisine. So it's also part of food tourism, of social capital, that finally Philippine cuisine is getting its spotlight in the platform. There's also part of thank you, saying gratifications when it comes to the Filipino identity, or in this case, pride. And there's also thank you for making sure that it is being acknowledged. So it says here, I assure you Filipino foods are one of the most delicious dishes. So there's being thank you for featuring part. So there's, as mentioned, the cultural legitimacy is present. And of course, um, there's also collective enthusiasm or some of like mass support that when the foreigners or the content creators do well in presenting aspects of Filipino culture, there's collective support that OMG, this YouTuber does cultural representations well. I will continue supporting them. I will subscribe. I will tune in for future videos. So this is a quote from the comment. When we start to love you, we will love you. So it's very strong, it's very deep support for that content creator. So all in all, we see how the affinity of the foreigners to our culture, despite them being an outsider, blends with how the reactions of the commenters want them to further engage with the culture through respect, through curiosity, through immersion. And so we acknowledge the interplay between the videos themselves, the foreign content creators, the commenters, into how it all ties up into visibility, cultural negotiation, cultural communication, maybe it from the content creator end or the commenters end. So thank you very much again, IERLab, for this opportunity. And if you want to further exchange the conversation, these are our emails. And allow me also to just a little bit promote my institution, University of the Philippines, Department of Communication Research. Yeah, we're very thankful for the IERLab and also from our department in guiding us throughout this study. That is all, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the time for me to present my presentation in the influencer diplomacy. And of course, in my focus is about the influencer as hybrid intermediaries in Jokowi diplomatic Endeavours, negotiation of power in the digital era. And of course, because for me it is very important because it's different Jokowi administration if we compare with another president in Indonesia. So my introduction is we know in Indonesia right now rise of digital diplomacy and hybrid actors. Yes, and in Jokowi context, Indonesia under President Joko Widodo, very popularly known as Jokowi, yes, has embraced digital diplomacy as part of the broader foreign policy strategy. And Jokowi administration recognized that the digital sphere is not merely a communication tool, but a contested space where national identity, cultural capital, and political legitimacy are negotiated before global audiences. So the research question is how influencer functions as intermediaries in Jokowi diplomacy. And my objective is to analyze their role in negotiations of power. And for me, it's the significance contribution to the debates on digital diplomacy and Indonesia global image. Okay. Indonesian digital ecosystem is characterized by higher social media penetration, even full demographics and vibrant online communities influence QP a central role in the ecosystem and cultivating labs following on the platforms such as Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Their contents, of course, spans lifestyle, fashion, food, travel, and social commentary reflecting the diversity of Indonesia digital culture influence grassroots credibility and their ability to protect authenticity, making them effective intermediaries for state messaging. All right. If we compare based on the theory, so I apply the theory based on the Joseph Nye, one of them. So we have the sources of the soft power. The firstly about the culture, and the secondly about political values, and the third is about the foreign policies. And the newest of the diplomacy based on the age of the artificial intelligence, we have many books and opinion on this. And hybrid intermediaries is a definition and characteristic of course digital publics and algorithmic visibility in positioning influencer with diplomacy studies. And in how about the Jokowi's diplomatic strategy? You know, if we're looking for Jokowi profile on diplomacy, Jokowi foreign policy priorities and and his activities emphasis on cultural diplomacy, not just ASEAN cooperation, about the climate change diplomacy, and of course integration of digital communication into state card. And you can look at the picture between Jokowi and Raffi Ahmad. Raffi Ahmad is the largest followers in Indonesia. He has 77 million followers, and I think for Jokowi it's very important to getting Raffi Ahmad is the famous people in Indonesia. One of the cases in the trying to new train Jakarta Bandung that built from the Chinese. So Jokowi's diplomatic in the fourth examining how they negotiate soft power in the digital era and what challenges their hybridity entail. In Indonesia foreign policy under Jokowi has emphasized pragmatic engagement with regional and global partners, particularly through ASEAN cooperation, climate diplomacy, and cultural exchange. It is the reason why Jokowi getting Raffi Ahmad as the famous and has many followers in not just in the Twitter but in Instagram. 77 million followers. I think it's very important for Jokowi to give taken supporting from the famous people like Raffi Ahmad. Jokowi diplomatic style is also characterized by a populist sensibility that seeks to connect with ordinary citizens. His administration has leveraged influencers to amplify messages of inclusivity, innovation, and national pride. And by mobilizing digital actors like Raffi Ahmad, one of the famous people, Jokowi project Indonesia as a youthful, creative, and globally connected an image that resonates with both domestic and international audience. And, this is the picture too, Raffi Ahmad and his wife, the people famous too. And characteristic of the Indonesia digital digital ecosystem, yes, based on the famous people and state influencer partnership. Until right now, Raffi Ahmad is state influencer partnership, authenticity versus institutional endorsement about the Indonesian government project and a program. In a case of sample of influencer involvement in diplomatic campaign, so negotiating between grassroots appeal and official messaging. This is the influencer as hybrid intermediaries. And I think we know too, and the conceptual framework, yes, highlights a tricky implication with analyzing Jokowi use of the influencer. First, influencer expand the repertoire of the soft power tool, like yes, state it available to the state, enabling messages to the rich audience, disengaged from the conventional political discourse. And the second, their hybridity introduced tension between authenticity and propaganda, requiring careful management of credibility. And the third, the dynamic of digital politics and public and algorithmic visibility underscore the contingent nature and influencer mediated diplomacy, where success depends on navigating both political and commercial logic. You know, in the picture, so Jokowi with the many influencers, yes, including the Duda. Yes, Duda is the what we call the group of influencer that based on the actor, like the most people like Raffi Ahmad, and Jokowi trying to collecting them for the supporting their project and their program. And of course, in soft power in digital era in Jokowi administration, you know, the picture show up for us many influencer, yes, beside Raffi Ahmad. In Indonesia, we have many influencers too that can participating to supporting Jokowi program before. And this is giving us a react how to influence the project Indonesia image like youthful, creative, globally connected, a narrative of inclusivity, innovation, and national pride. Expansion of diplomatic threat to the this audience and a comparative insight from the other state use influencers. And you know,
Sorry, interrupt you, Dr. Vajrio. We don't have
okay.
time.
Sorry, yeah. Yes. And based on cultural diplomacy to remain cornerstone of the Indonesia soft power strategy, Jokowi's interest has emphasized Indonesia's rich cultural heritage, creative industries, and youthful demographic. And you know, this is the Jokowi with Raffi Ahmad and Atta Halilintar, the promoting Indonesian capital city. And I think this is the group about the legitimacy challenges and tension about the legitimacy, commodification, risk of propaganda and authenticity, algorithmic visibility, impact on the state messaging. And of course, I think last, I think Indonesia under President Jokowi exemplifies
Sorry, interrupting you again, Dr. Vajrio.
Okay.
We have the one last presenter.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. My presentation is some pilgrimage to the platform, influencer storytelling, and the practice of everyday diplomacy in the independent journey. This method, my method in this article is the data presented were collected through the observation on the Instagram and the TikTok platforms. I found the 6 content creator influencer of independent Umrah who show the relatively high level of engagement. Some analysis of content originates from the users and the customers associated with this influencer. Independent Umrah is refers to pilgrimage to Holy Land undertaken for the purpose of the performing Umrah ritual without the involvement inside Umrah travel operation operator or direct governmental facilitation. Previously, individual intending to perform Umrah were required to proceed to these two channels. Today, it is possible to undertake Umrah independently, provide that several requirements are fulfilled, including obtaining a visa, securing flight ticket, and accommodation registered to the Nusuk application. This development has been positively received, particularly among urban Muslims who tend uh, to exhibit distinct preference and orientation in both religious practice and leisure travel, including in the context of the Umrah pilgrimage. This shift has also catalyzed emergence of influence from the diverse backgrounds at intermediaries, capitalizing on this opportunity to expand their sphere of influence. Independent Umrah influencer, they are influencer or religious influencer. The, the differentiation of the rules from the traditional religious authorities, particularly following the introduction of regulatory frameworks such as Hajj law and observed in several aspects. Previously, licensed Umrah travel operator often has the central locus of attracting and assembling, organizing the pilgrimage. In contrast, dependent Umrah below is a much significant gap in information and guidance throughout the departure process. It is precisely at this juncture that independent Umrah influencer assume a substantial role. Model in model on independent Umrah influencer are two. It is personal influencer and business-oriented influencer. The personal influencer who do not possess explicit the commercial attention. The primarily objectives is to share their experience and knowledge related to the independent Umrah journey. And the business-oriented influencer who not only disseminate information but also simultaneously offer service and products to prospective independent individuals. Content their product is produced procedure of from the purchase to the completion of the journey, the benefits and convenience of independent Umrah, personal experience of undertaking independent Umrah, and the promotion of products and services related directly or and indirectly to the Umrah journey. Uh, I split the diplomacy in the independent Umrah is in two ways. One is political economic diplomacy. Independent Umrah influencer operate within and actively shape the nexus political economic